Auditor Heifel, will you move for the pledge, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. If there are no additions to the agenda, I would entertain a motion to approve.
Move.
Motion by Weiss, second by Dennert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. At this point, we'll open the meeting up for any public comment. Anyone wish to address the commission this morning? Online, on the phone? Seeing none, we will move on. Dirk Rogers, who's itching to get out of town, is up first. Highway Superintendent.
That's time for a change.
Well, I had to, call and beg the auditor and call in 6 favors to get to go first before the pipeline discussion.
You're on your way to Nate's, right?
Yep.
Very good. Thank you for representing us on that.
Yep, and those of you that don't know, I'm the state NACE director, and this is the fall business meeting, and it coincides with the Tennessee highway superintendents, or whatever they are. They might be engineers in Tennessee, I don't know. But, so there's a couple sessions we can take in as long as we're there too, so it'll be good.
Good.
First thing, I got a right-of-way occupancy. It's for Webb, and it's just born under the road up there at Stuckey's Farm. That's right south of the water plant. I don't have a problem with it. They're just putting a new service underneath the road, so it should be minimal.
Okay.
Move to approve. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
I suppose there's some irony in the fact that that thing's a half mile south of the water plant, the city's water plant. We just approved the Webb occupancy.
Crazy world.
Yes. Well, that's a long story there, huh? Other than that, I just have a few things to kind of tell you where we're at with stuff. Mowing is still going painstakingly slow, but we're moving forward and doing what we can with what we got. Still searching to rent a couple other tractors, but trying to get something that's kind of reasonable right now isn't the best. But we're moving. Got about 4 tractors running, so. Up on the Elm Lake Road, still technically closed. They're well into the fencing, got a good chunk of the fencing back up there. And, Dennis has a lot of friends up there, so we have to make sure we get the fences right, or else they'll let them that forever.
I haven't heard a word.
Good. So there's fencing, and we're gonna put another lift of gravel on there. I would say in the next couple weeks, that'll be fully open, and we'll notify Scott and emergency management and first responders that it's actually a road. I don't know if they had a little addressing discussion or something a while back. I don't know how that landed. Today we're trying to shoot oil on the Beagle Road, going down the Brook Brown dock. Unless that fails miserably, we'll be paving that later this week, but we're kind of getting to the end of when you should be shooting oil, so hopefully it'll be all right. Bridge 93, which is over south of Groton, it's about a 50-footer. Be right there. That one's being replaced by Holloway right now. They're about 80% done with it, I'd say. Got a little gravel and a few other things. And fortunately, we talked to the local guys, so it didn't honk folks up too bad with harvest. You can get around pretty good. So we're all done paving on 16, other than what we'll do next year with Sand Lake Bridge and the 3 miles that's gravel in there. That'll all get done next year. The paving's done. Stripers are still coming. They'll stripe the north end of that. And then I got a request to stripe the first mile south of Melgard on 10. That also had the lights conversation tied to it again at the dumpster site. I don't know. I don't necessarily have a dog in a fight, but that's about the 3rd time someone's commented to me about the lights at the dumpster site. So that be whatever it is. I mean, and then we'll patch it. Well, I mean, for real, we had to run around. We threw some gravel in that thing you called me about on Saturday, and then, but we'll be running around with the real patch crew and using hot mix and stuff yet. So that's about it.
Sounds good to me.
Be gone.
All right.
All right, have a safe trip.
Geez, it's like, what's going on? All right. Thank you very much.
You bet, thank you.
I got my phone, so call me if you need something.
You bet, thank you. All right, next up, Kylie Lang, Summit Carbon Solutions, project update. Good morning.
Morning, how are you guys?
Good.
All right, so the last 2 weeks, we've talked about sustainable aviation fuel. You know, we had GVO come in 2 weeks ago, and then last week Jim Zier talked about the opportunities here at these plants up north. I wanted to quickly kind of give, you know, my 2 cents on sustainable aviation and then kind of move to another topic. So sustainable aviation fuel, similar to ethanol, but it blends into jet fuel. What's unique about it is we can blend 50% sustainable aviation fuel into jet fuel, where most of us know, you know, it's about 10 to 15 of ethanol into gasoline. When I think about it, and the capabilities for sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, I think I can compare it to the Dakota Access Pipeline. The Dakota Access Pipeline runs through South Dakota, but it's not an energy source to South Dakota as it runs through, because it runs through in crude oil. It has to get to Illinois, be refined, and become a product. And at that point, they have the right to sell it. I think this opens the market, and it's easy for us to understand. We can see that that's an energy source. It's very direct to us. Most of us drive gasoline engines. So it's kind of an easy comparison of an energy. But what the CO2 pipeline does is it takes CO2, takes it to North Dakota and sequesters it, and it allows the ethanol companies to create SAF, which is an energy source. Without capturing the CO2, SAF is not an option. They can blend ethanol into jet fuel, and it's just ethanol jet fuel, and it's not SAF. So to me, that's a comparison. The airlines get to choose the gasoline that they use. They get to choose to use SAF, just like we get to choose to use gasoline in our cars. They have chosen that. Almost every major airline in the U.S. has chosen to make commitments to SAF. I think actually every major airline in the U.S. There's a goal in the U.S. by 2050 to have 35 billion gallons of SAF. We have an opportunity to take U.S. carbon, take it to North Dakota and sequester it in the United States, to then allow U.S. grown corn to be turned into U.S. produced ethanol, turned into U.S. produced SAF, to sell to our U.S. airlines. But if we don't do that, if we choose to not go the SAF route, they've already made these commitments, and our foreign energy competitors are creating SAF. So they have the option. SAF does not have to be made from corn. We believe it's the most realistic option because of the mass amounts, because we already have ethanol plants in production. We think it makes sense for the Corn Belt to take the next steps of SAF. We think SAF in 20 years is what ethanol is today. So 20 years ago, they were starting the ethanol industry. 25 years ago, they were starting the ethanol industry. And to start it, they put tax incentives in place, very similar to what they're doing now to sequester carbon and get the carbon intensity scores down. There was kind of confusion back then, questioning for the need for it. So what the government did is they incentivized it at the beginning, and then they regulated it. They said you have to blend E10. We think SAF is going to go the same way. First incentivize it, then require it. Allowing us to do it in the United States means SAF is going to be a U.S. energy source. It's going to take us a step closer to energy independence. Or we could let Delta, American, United buy it from a foreign entity, because they're going to buy it. They've already chosen to use it. And to me, it just makes sense that we use American companies, American products, American corn to make SAF. So my take on it's a little less technical than I know GVO's was, but if they can get their carbon intensity score down, the Glacial Lakes plant, they want to make a $750 million investment into the plant. to transfer it to an SAF plant. That's a huge investment that they're not willing to make if they can't get their carbon intensity score down. In no way is that threatening, accusatory, that's just what it is. They won't invest their money if they can't guarantee it's going to be SAF. So that's how I see SAF. I think it's important. I think in 20 years we'll be looking back and talking about when SAF started, and that's right now, and that's if it's created here, it's going to be as important as ethanol is today. Do you guys have any questions on SAF? I know we've talked about it a lot.
Question I have is, the ethanol that's being produced in the ethanol plants today, that can be mixed with jet fuel to get, to end up with jet fuel, right? A usable jet fuel.
So they take the ethanol and it's another process. So they'll have to add processors.
But the product that they're producing today can be mixed with jet fuel.
Assuming it went through the SAF process. The product as it stands today, no. It has to be turned into sustainable aviation fuel. So you take ethanol and turn it into SAF. And
so there's another step.
There's another step. That's why they're going to spend about $750 million at the Glacial Lakes plant to add on the additional processors.
So even after the sequestration and everything, that same step will have to be gone through.
Yep.
But the ethanol coming out of the ethanol plant will be the exact same product before and after the sequestration.
Yes.
So there's no, the
considered
end product
yeah, it'll just
will
be
be
considered low
exactly
carbon.
the same.
Yeah.
And the only thing that makes it low carbon is that the carbon is no longer being emitted into the air.
Yeah.
But the end product is exactly the same.
Yeah.
No chemical difference, no nothing.
Nope.
Okay. All right, I just wanted that clarified.
They're gonna have like two piping systems at the ethanol plant, that one with the ethanol and then one with the jet fuel?
That would be my guess, but I'm honestly not that familiar with the details of it. Eric, who's here, he's our director of pipeline, I don't know if
I'm not extremely familiar with it, but, I mean, ultimately, it's just additional processing to produce SAF from, so, you know, Glacial Lakes has said that they want to do the $750 million investment to further process the ethanol to make SAF. You know, the GEVO plant that's being proposed in Lake Preston is another $1 billion investment in South Dakota that would be taking the same thing. They would have their own kind of on-site production of ethanol, which is then turned into SAF. And then GEVO has said, you know, that they're looking at another location, potentially in South Dakota, if they can sequester their carbon for another plant. So you're talking about potentially up to $3 billion worth of SAF investments in South Dakota, and our, you know, over $1 billion investment. So $4 billion potentially being invested in South Dakota. It's a huge economic investment. Thousands of jobs will be created. You know, so we think it's extremely important. I mean, Kylie said that, you know, you can blend up to 50% SAF into jet fuel. And the jet fuel market in the world is 80 to 100 billion gallons. So, you know, the plant that's being built or proposed in Lake Preston will produce roughly 50 million gallons of SAF. And so if you look at 35 billion gallons that Kylie mentioned of the market that's out there, there's an opportunity to build essentially 700 plants across the world. And, you know, and these plants are looking at opportunities to spend that money here in South Dakota, either building a new plants or converting the ethanol plants to produce SAF. I mean, so it's a huge opportunity, and they've made the commitment, so the plants are going to be built. Are they going to be built in China and other places, or are they going to be built in the U.S. and using domestic, you know, corn production to produce the ethanol and the SAF? I mean, that's the question. So we think it's extremely important, and so that's, I guess, my take on it.
Go ahead, Jared.
So 2 years we talked about this Summit pipeline thing, and this is the first Well, like it's the second time now you guys are talking this jet fuel stuff since you're regrouping and becoming this different, more open deal. In the pipeline, I feel, so to make this jet fuel, you take like the ethanol stuff that's being made and add carbon dioxide to it in a process that's strictly sequestering. I feel like the whole goal, you guys need the pipeline to get the carbon dioxide to these places. You know, and that's what we've been talking, there's different deals to do this, like the green methanol side. And I don't know what the exact process is to make your guys' jet fuel. But that's an investment too, these ethanol plants can do with no pipeline and take the carbon out of the air. They don't have to take stuff across people's land. They don't have to put this dangerous pipeline in the ground. And now all of a sudden it's just there. It's like, and you keep, everybody comes to the commission and so it puts pressure on them like, oh, if they don't redo this ordinance and stuff, that this is going on in the state. Well, who's backing all this summit stuff, this foreign entities? You guys, I don't know. I don't trust what you're saying, and that was 2 years of how you guys ran the show before, and I just feel you guys are gonna have to explain this process more, because I feel the carbon dioxide is being used, and maybe there's some stuff at the end that you pump in the ground, North Dakota, but I don't think it's, everything's just kinda as you say.
Clear, I mean, we don't need the CO2 you don't take the CO2 as, to make the SAF. They have to have low carbon ethanol to hit the CI criteria that they need to produce SAF. So they have to be able to.
Well, why can't they do, they could do multiple things at these plants. Why can't they catch the CO2, add the hydrogen, make the methanol? That would take their CI score down to that. They could do that and do this jet fuel stuff there with no pipeline. And make a whole nother product, the methanol, which is used, can be, Cargo's already got barges converted to this. I mean, and they can't make enough. The reason Cargo's not hooked on any of these pipelines, they're doing this stuff already.
So it's just not what GEVO's proposing to do. I mean, could it be done? I don't know the answer to that. I know that GEVO has told us that if they cannot tie into our pipeline and, you know, produce low carbon ethanol and ultimately will take their CO2 as well, they are not going to build in South Dakota. They're looking at other sites across other states, and they're going to build a plant. It's just the question is whether it's going to be built here or whether it's going to be built in Nebraska or Louisiana or some other place.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Just wondering if the jets that are burning this jet fuel, are they emitting CO2? Has there been any scientific studies as to how much they emit into the atmosphere? So we make jet aviation fuel, but then they take it up in the sky, and how much is emitted out into the atmosphere? Obviously, in the process of burning that fuel, they're creating CO2. So what's the whole come around on this thing?
Airlines track their CO2 emissions very closely. I think now when you book a flight, you have to bypass them telling you how much CO2 they're emitting during the flight that you're taking, if you guys have booked flights recently. The reason they want SAF is because it drastically drops that score down. It doesn't get them to zero. But I think most of us agree going 100% battery is not an option. I think especially in our airplanes it's not an option. And this is a way for them to lower their carbon intensity, you know, without making...
I mean, essentially, if you could blend it to 50%, then instead of burning 100% jet fuel that emits way more, has a much more carbon intense process from the time it's produced all the way through it being burned, that 50% of the jet fuel being burned now has a much lower carbon impact, and that's where they get the credit for that. I mean, you know, they've looked at it. They, you know, basically said the only way that they're going to be able to hit the goals that they need to is through SAF, because, you know, the burning of the 80 to 100 billion gallons of jet fuel is, you know, by far their largest impact on, you know, carbon intensity. And so for them to be able to, make an impact and reduce it and hit the goals that they've been, told that they have to hit, they have to do it through blending staff.
So there is scientific proof of that.
Yeah, I'm not a chemist, but I mean...
The numbers are out there.
It's essentially just what, the input into the SAF to produce it is much less because you're taking the CO2 out of it. So now, all of that CO2 that theoretically would have gone to the atmosphere when it was burned is now being sequestered as part of the process of producing the SAF.
So rather than just having it come off the chimney, you're pushing it out into the atmosphere out of a jet while it's being burned.
Well, it's being pulled out of the process earlier, and now it's going underground early in the process as opposed to going to atmosphere when it's burned at the end.
So you're saying that it's reducing by the burning process of this new fuel, and there's no scientific proof of that?
What's the scientific proof that this CO2 going in the air hurts anything?
I mean, that's debatable, and honestly,
Well,
there's no way to really prove that, and I can't do that, but I can tell you that there's a market to produce SAF, and that's what we're looking at is how can this, billions of gallons of SAF that needs to be produced domestically and not be, produced in China or overseas or Brazil or whatever it may be. And so the science about, greenhouse gases and all of that, I mean, there's no way to prove that, that's debatable. But it doesn't change the fact that there is a market to be sold.
I know the corn uses CO2.
Commissioner Weiss, go ahead.
I think this is all interesting and important conversation and stuff. My question is, what do you want from us as the Brown County Commission?
I guess pipeline permitting is complicated, right? And we're going to be submitting a conditional use permit. So to me, getting you guys all the information and the why, that's what we're here doing.
Okay.
And, I mean, so we understand the ordinance and the setback. I mean, ultimately, and I'm probably speaking out of turn here, but we would like the opportunity to discuss if there's any way that there can be a revision to that, if there's any way that, because the way it stands now, we're willing to do a wholesale reroute of the pipeline across the entire county, and we know we have to do that in order to try to be compliant with the ordinance. There's no opportunity for us to route the pipeline to get to the plant. So as it stands now, what we're going to have to do, and we'll seek out the waivers. I mean, we're going to try to go through the process, and we'll try to get the waivers. But as you know, there's a lot of businesses and, dwellings and things like that immediately adjacent to the plant. So we will seek out those waivers in the fashion that we can. We'll have the plan involved with those discussions. We will try to get those waivers. We'll pay for the waivers. If we can't get the waivers, then ultimately what we're going to have to do is drop that plant from the project and then proceed without it. I mean, that's our only choice. We're not going to, if we can't get the waivers, can't get the waivers. So, and we've already investigated, seeking waivers. They're difficult to get. I mean, it's quite frankly, that's the truth. I mean, we don't have a lot of confidence we're going to get the waivers. We're still going to seek them and try to get them. But ultimately, if we can't get them, we're going to drop the plant from the project and we're going to proceed as is without the plant, without the Glacial Lakes Aberdeen plant. So that's our plan. So we'd like to see if there's any way that we could work with Brown County, with whoever we need to work with the landowners, to get a route to get to the plant. We are happy to show the dispersion model in private and showing what that looks like and what the actual release looks like for a 6-inch pipeline. And we think that would show that a 1,500-foot setback from a parcel line is overly restrictive.
Well, if you can get the waivers, that don't matter.
What's
Would
that?
you want the pipeline in your guys' front yard, or your business's front yard?
Well, the work is going to need to be done with the property owners and with planning and zoning, and sharing that information, because we take the recommendations from the planning and zoning, which you know full well.
Yeah.
So you
We're
have
happy.
a path in order to reach that plan.
That's actually what I wanted to talk about today.
So let's get there.
At planning and zoning, my understanding is we can't work with them in any capacity. We can't get on their agenda, we can't speak with them, up until the conditional use is submitted and we're at our hearing. I was hoping we'd have a much more collaborative process in talking about a route, talking about where we're at in the county, but it's sounding like that's not an option. So,
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Mike.
Who can you not speak to?
the members of the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Yeah, but can you talk to Scott?
I can't, we can work
He's
with
our-
Scott, but
he's
he's not right, he's the voting member. So we work with Scott, and he says, yeah, this looks great, and then we
Yeah.
spend months working on it,
Well,
and,
there's reasons for that, so that's not, the reason you guys don't is the same reason that anybody else doesn't get, private meetings, is to not sway the vote in that, in that body. The process is you guys, and I'm not just saying for you, it's for everybody that comes into the planning and zoning. They get everything in order, and through Scott's office, we'll tell you how to do that, and whatever, but we don't pick routes, we're not in charge of that, we approve things, you know what I mean? We don't really do the groundwork, no
we can
offense,
do
we
that,
just don't, so
but
you guys come into us
previously
with a plan, that was at the last one that was in there, they didn't really have all the groundwork done, that's why it was postponed. Because the stuff ahead of time, we had to kind of go through, and this is what you need and that, and I know Scott is very versed in all of that, and can let you guys know what you're gonna need for this stuff, though. But, the reason you can't meet with us, like on a one-on-one conversation, is because we're voting members of it. We vote on what's there, you know what I mean?
But we also aren't allowed on the agenda, is my understanding, the public agenda,
For the permit?
for the planning and zoning, to come
the
and
conditional
talk
use?
about
For
prior to the conditional use.
I guess,
There's
well,
another-
and maybe it was a misunderstanding. We could not be on the agenda to discuss the project in any capacity until we were filing our conditional use permit. And if that's not the case, then we would like to be able to meet publicly with all the planning and zoning to discuss, if there's any opportunity for any changes or whatever it may be, and just to clarify the ordinance and to understand all the details of it. And ultimately, if the setback can't change and the waivers are what they are, then we will in earnest seek those, and we've got a plan to do that. But if we can't get there, then I'm just telling you that what our plan is just to drop the plan, and then we'll apply for the conditional use permit without the plan involved.
You would give a presentation when you submit your conditional use. Previous to that, there's nothing in an application.
Well, I think it's more just,
So I'm not quite sure what you guys are trying to...
I guess, right, if you go at a state level permitting, it's a 3-week, 12-hour-a-day process. There's
For the
a lot,
PUC.
for the PC, it's a lot of information, right? So we want to make sure we're getting you guys information as well. The why, the routing choices, all of those conversations. And then also, the first week I was here, I said I want to make this collaborative, I want to make sure you guys understand the route. Where I'm at right now, it sounds like that's not possible. So my option is to, finalize the route, go for the waivers, and without really communicating anything, submit, with the exception of working with Scott, is submit the conditional use permit, make sure we're all on the same page that, that's not the route I wanted to do, but that's the route it's looking like I'm gonna do, and if you guys agree with that, then that's what it is.
So are you guys able to come in like in the next 2 or 3 weeks and show the plume study to the commission?
Right now, we have one person, our director of engineering, who does that, and we're really hyper-focused on getting it out to the emergency managers. So that's where he's at, and then after that, it's the first responders. So,
I think it was 3 weeks ago when you came in the first time, you said we would be able to see that, though.
So we started presenting it to emergency managers.
Yep.
We've done it in this county. It's really clunky. It took us 2 hours to do a one-on-one, explanation of it. We can definitely do one-on-one explanations, but to turn it into a presentation right now is not something we have, and it's not something he has time to work on because he's focused on the emergency managers, which are the people at the end of the day who need it.
yes, so Alex is meeting with all the emergency managers, first responders, and there's a lot of counties, we cross 18 counties.
Who's Alex again?
So he's our director of engineering.
What's his last name?
Alex Lang.
Okay.
Kylie's better half on and so Alex is meeting and showing that information to the emergency managers and first responders across the whole footprint.
Okay.
And so once that effort's complete, then, you know, we're gonna expand the effort and try to show it to others, but, that's where we're at right now.
So does he show that before or after the $50,000 grant, bribe, whatever, that's been out there that the emergency managers are gonna get, and $1,000 of the county for every mile of pipe? And who writes these grants? Does that come right from Bruce Rostetter himself?
So, I mean, Summit Carbon is gonna pay for the grants.
A bribe, it's a bribe.
I mean, I don't think it's a bribe. I think
Grants a fancy way of saying bribe.
Let's talk through the chair, please.
Did you have anything else to add? Okay, go ahead, Doug.
So GEVO states that they aren't willing to build a plant if they can't get the pipeline through. The issue becomes the plant in Aberdeen. Their other plants are all functional. It seems to be Aberdeen's the hang-up because of the location of this plant. It's tough to get that plant. You've got businesses all the way around this plant. It's almost impossible with any kind of setback. Well, why doesn't somebody decide to do the carbon solutions out of the Watertown plant? Why can't they make jet fuel there?
I mean, the Watertown plant, and most of the plants are in a business, surrounded by businesses. If you look at the Watertown plant, there's businesses, houses all around that plant. So having a large setback from any of the ethanol plants makes it almost impossible to get to the ethanol plants, and that's a problem. The GEVO plant is going to be on a greenfield site in Lake Preston, so getting to that's going to be a non-issue. So it's really the Glacial Lakes Aberdeen plant is, with the ordinance that's in place right now in Brown County, we cannot get to it. We'd like to explore an opportunity to do so, but if we can't, we can't, and we're going to follow the process. So, you know, we're going to seek out the waivers, and that's one other thing I wanted to see is, I know that in order for us to try to get the waivers and to hopefully secure some waivers, we have to finalize the waiver form. So, do you know, Kylie, where that stands?
I think it's waiting on legal review for, yeah.
And Ross.
So then, once he reviews it, then we can say this is the approved waiver form, and now we can start to seek the waivers.
My position is, it's your guys' waiver. I'm not going to give you a legal opinion on that.
We're okay with that.
Go ahead, Dennis.
Thank you. The emergency managers throughout the counties answer to the county commission, and I guess I'm curious whether or not you folks have had the opportunity to get an update from the emergency manager as to exactly what kind of communications is going on. I think you guys paying his salary, or the county paying his salary, should have the opportunity to know and hear what's going on. I think he should be attending these meetings so that he hears what's going on. And just an observation and a thought.
I would guess that he's listening in, so he's aware of what's being discussed.
Thank you.
But he hasn't made us aware that he's had any communication at this point and has any updated information to provide. So,
But I think as and when he gets that information, he needs to be here to present it to you folks.
absolutely, I agree.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Kind of answer your question a little further. You said why this plant, I think you were asking for SAF. I believe the economics made sense because there's two plants within 13 miles of each other, and they're going to piggyback off each other. I'm not an expert. I know they did a study, and I know Watertown was part of that study.
And to be clear, they're proposing doing SAF at Glacial Lakes Mina, right? I believe that is
My understanding.
Yeah.
That's the plan. So just to be clear, that's where Glacial Lakes was proposing doing the conversion, is just down the road at the Mina plant.
And they'll use the ethanol from the Aberdeen plant.
Go ahead, Mike.
Just as far as the meeting with people and everything, I would say that you had a couple different things. The like the conditional use permit and everything is gonna have to come, and then that's when you can present in front of the planning and zoning. But as far as like a project update, as far as your, where you were at and routing and everything, that can be done here under project update. I mean, that would be a great project. I know the people on the planning and zoning, board, you know, pay attention to this stuff, they get copies of it, they do their homework on that. So if there's an update here of where we're routing, I mean, and known, they're gonna find that also, you know, and then being a public forum, it's not, you know, skewing them in one way or the other, it's, you know, everybody has their, you know, everybody can talk on both sides, whatever. So as far as you know, being able to contact us, I mean, there's a lot of different avenues to do, and I know Scott is a good source for finding out the process on this stuff, so. Sorry.
All right, anything else that you'd like to add? Dennis, one more.
Well, I guess, you know, what this thing really comes down to is a matter of freedom. Totally, 100%, the opportunity for individuals, citizens, to be able to protect their property rights. And I mean, I don't know if, you know, how many counties were offered this $50,000 and $1,000 a mile. It lends towards a bribe is what it does. And I just, if I can take the time, I want to read to you what the definition of a bribe is. A bribe is an illegal act involving the exchange of something of value, such as money, with the purpose of influencing the behavior of public officials. Do you think Summit Carbon Solutions has offered a bribe? And I know you folks are, you know, been very, very good about defending the people's property rights, no question about it. And if, you know, this thing, I don't know how many counties got the letter from Forelli, but the truth of the matter is, it lends absolutely towards a bribe to influence you folks, how you're gonna, and that's what these folks do when they come in here. They're trying to influence you. And so, thank you for what you do, and thank you for sticking up for the people, and hang in there.
Okay.
Can I respond to that?
Yes.
You know, we were asked for transparency, give us information, and we'd say we'll take care of your first responders, and we were told, prove it. So we put it on paper. In no way is that seen as a bribe. That's why it went directly to the emergency managers for us to have conversations to make sure it gets to the right people. You know, people can take it how they want, but transparency was asked for, and that's what we went with.
And
we can't make everyone happy.
To be clear, this isn't something that's special for Brown County. It was given. It's going to be given to every single county across all 5 states. And we've heard emergency managers and first responders say, "Hey, our budgets are already strapped. We don't have the money to, you know, get, you know, response trailers or CO2 detectors or SCBA units." And so we heard that, and again, this is an and this isn't unique to pipeline projects. I'm pretty sure Dakota Access did something similar to this when they came through. It's an opportunity to give money in a location where it's needed, so that, you know, the emergency managers and the first responders aren't burdened with our pipeline project, and we're able to provide them the equipment that they need on our dime. And it's not to bribe anybody, it's to provide the equipment that's needed to respond to a pipeline.
I've got one last comment. It seems to me that if Summit Carbon Solutions really wanted to be upfront and honest about this thing, what they would do is they would draft a contract, and they would sign it, and they would have the commission sign it, that specifically stated any damages created or caused, any equipment that would happen to be used, any loss of life, that Summit Carbon Solutions would cover those things, rather than come in and offer money ahead of the fact. How about let's sign a contract with Summit Carbon Solutions that says, you know what, we'll cover all these costs. All you gotta do is, you know, if and when the pipe ever goes through, then this contract will go into effect, and we'll cover all emergency costs, we'll cover everything. You would have no problem. You would just sit there, and when the pipe happens, if it happens, you sign the contract, and you get all expense recovered. Life, death loss, equipment loss, response, all of those things. Just a thought.
Anyone else? If not, thank you for the update. Appreciate it.
Thanks for calling, everybody.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Continue to monitor the project.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Sorry for talking after.
Sure, no problem. Next up, Rich Kipley, Fairgrounds Parks Manager. Morning, Rachel.
So, a month or so, we put out a call for some of our contacts to send us proposals as far as how we should do our ticketing at the fair. These were 7 of them that we got back. After extensive conversations on phone and email and kind of doing some check-in, we brought it to the Fair Board last week. The one that's highlighted is who they recommend. If you remember, last week we talked a little bit about ShowClicks is where we were at. They've been with us quite a few years and took us, like I said last week, out of a dark place. But we've come to a point where they don't have a lot of customer service when we call. It's hard to get a real person on the line when we're having issues at the gates or like a timely response. So we'd kind of like to go with an option that has better tech support and troubleshooting when the time comes. So that's why we come to eTix is who we are recommending to you guys. You'll see some of the different fees, equipment for the various options that we've been looking into. Just for comparison, box office tickets are when you go to like your Ken's, Kessler's, Kitchen Post, or the ticket booth at the grandstand to purchase. We were paying 25 cents to ShowClicks for each ticket sold at a box office. With eTix, it will be 15 cents, and we'll continue to do the same thing that we used to do. That's the one fee that we absorb, because we don't want people coming into any of those locations with their exact change. Let's say it's a $50 ticket and they have their $50, sorry, it's $50.15. We absorb that. Nothing changes. We do that right now. So what'll happen is eTix will continue to invoice us for those small amounts, the ticket fee, and then we'll pay that on a weekly, monthly, whatever we set up. Now, when you're talking about mobile or online purchases, obviously those are all going to be your credit card purchases. What we're planning to do on that, ShowClicks was between $1 and $2.50 for an online purchase, and it varied depending on the amount of the transaction. So the most you were paying was $2.50 there, and I believe it was at $100 where you maxed out at the $2.50 for that ticket pricing. What we're looking at doing is going through eTix. It will be $2.50 for every ticket, so it will be a little bit more expensive if you buy like a single ticket, but it's just across the board and it's going to be pretty easy accounting. The reason we're going with the option 1 or recommending it to you is option 2. There's an extra quarter that it would be more expensive for the consumer. But what we're hoping to do is when we kind of calculated the scanners and the things that we'll need as far as equipment, it's cheaper for us to buy it than what it would be for the consumer to pay the extra quarter when you're looking at like 18 to 20,000 tickets. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Okay. So from the point that you guys decide if you are wanting to move forward with this, and was the contract in the packet? I think I forwarded it. Or did you guys get it? Okay. It'll take about 2 to 4 weeks to onboard. That's basically the mapping that occurs that's already on our website. We are reducing the map to about 650 tickets because we only sold between grandstand reserve tickets about 400 last year. So when you look at the Larry Gerlach grandstand, you'll see the orange reddish seats on the sides and then the yellow that are in the middle. Only the yellow now will be reserve seating. So it'll take them a little bit of time to make that map and get it online, but we're thinking that's a pretty good time frame, just in case the board decides and you guys approve doing some online sales Black Friday to Christmas. If you remember last year, we turned it on for about 4 weeks so people could get 2022 pricing and order Christmas presents, carnival tickets, things like that. The contact that we've been working with, her name is Amy Myers. She will be at the Heartland Convention here in town at the Ramkota, so we're going to meet with her then and kind of talk through a few more of the specifics of it. They've been real good to work with, very responsive when we have questions. I did get the couple questions that you guys had on the contract. Pull that out. So I did have another call for yesterday at 4 to kind of address those. I think one of them was, well, what happens if, let me find the email. It was regarding the refunds, I think. There it is.
That's if the county does not purchase separate events coverage, and the county may be on the hook for
Yeah.
paid e-tics for payments related to refunds.
Yes. So what would happen in that situation, and we usually don't cover any event insurance, because with the number of package tickets that we're getting, your best bet is 2 out of the 3, you're gonna make it 2 or 3 of the 4 package tickets. So our policy right now, and this is printed on our website, anybody that goes to buy a ticket gets to see it, no refunds for unused services, artist cancellations, or allowance for loss of enjoyment caused by uncontrollable conditions. Customer assumes all risk. There is no refunds for acts of nature or other disruptive conditions. All events purchased through the Brown County Fair should be considered rain or shine final purchases, and it goes on to give more specifics. So we believe it's a pretty solid policy that we don't have to give refunds. Now, if for some reason there was one that we wanted to consider, you could probably go back and have that conversation. But so talking with them, they would never issue a refund unless we, for some reason, if it's some unique circumstance that we wanted it, we would go to them. But they don't issue any of them. Does that make sense? Okay. And then it sounded like most of the other language in there was pretty standard. And then what we would like to do, and we'll get more details as we get into this, but the concept of a kiosk has been really popular at other venues. So when things are really rocking and rolling, probably between like a 3 and 7 p.m. on a concert day, we typically have 3 to 4 ticket sellers there at the ticket booth, and it is hard to find people to come work for us just for the week. We've been pretty fortunate. But what we were looking at trying is 1 or 2 of the windows to try a kiosk where you just go and it's the Wi-Fi is hooked up, and just like with the scanners and everything else, and you purchase your own ticket right there at the grandstand. So that's why you'll see scanners are also necessary. We'll get those, and the ticket stock is free. But yeah, we're thinking e-tics, and then also as you'll see, a lot of our neighbors use it. Many of the state fairs, North Dakota State Fair, South Dakota State Fair, so pretty reputable business. And then, one thing I did not touch on, so the $250 per ticket, and then if you choose to use a credit card, just like in most county business, you will absorb your own county your credit card fees. We are not going to pay those for people. Any questions on those options? I mean, there's some other good ones in there, but when we looked at the total package, we kind of thought e-tics was the place to go, and it is a 3-year contract.
So you'll plan on still having live bodies and kiosks at the ticket booth then? Probably like 2 of each roughly?
We would maybe just, do 1 or 2 kiosks to try it. We'll kind of look at the pricing. I think it's $175, but to see what they recommend.
It's worth trying, I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Mike.
I got one question, but it's, I think it's appropriate. I'm gonna ask for an executive session for contracts to have that conversation, if you don't mind.
Okay. Entertain a motion to go into executive session by Weiss. Is there a second? Second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec.
#
All right, the light's back on. We'll be easier for a minute while Lynn gets us plugged back on.
The organizer has not yet started the meeting. You will be placed on hold until an organizer starts the meeting.
You won this battle. Yeah. All right, so we're back in session, out of exec with no action as a result.
First 1 in 3 weeks.
We have before us a proposal to go with e-tics as the new ticketing agent for the fair. Would entertain a motion to approve if anyone wishes.
Option 1, second.
Option 1, yes.
I think I moved in.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, no, I started and then he said something, so I'll move option 1.
Okay, we have a motion by
Sorry.
Denner, second by Weiss.
Okay.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
All right. The other thing I think was in your packet, 25 members constitutes the full Brown County Fair Board. The board recommends appointment of new members Dylan Fry, Lee Cook, and Trevor Meitz for 3-year terms. They also recommend the reappointment for their second 3-year term to Dwight Guthmiller, Jeff Kipley, Mike Nels, and Nancy Radke. In addition, they recommended a 1-year appointment for both Jason Tullison and Greg Markley. And then should you guys choose to make those appointments, we will be at the full 25, which we have not been for a long time. And we also wanted to make a note that Aaron Dosh also put in an application and was a great candidate for the Fair Board. So I think it's really a testament to the caliber, the work ethic and caliber of those folks that are putting on that fair, that they're a fun group, but they really get after it. They've done some really phenomenal things, and they're really making the fair better every year. So I feel pretty lucky to work with them.
All right.
Agreed, good comments. Move.
We have a motion by Weiss, second by Feldheim to approve the proposed new Fair Board members. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Have a great day.
Thanks for those new members. All right, next up, first reading of 3 new ordinances.
Ordinance 257, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinances amended to rezone certain described property, filed by the Brown County Planning and Zoning Department to describe properties from heavy industrial district to highway commercial district.
All right, is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 257? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve first reading.
Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Ordinance 258, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain described property, filed by Nicholas and Nicole Johnson to move the property from Egg Preservation District to Mini Egg District.
Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 258? Seeing none.
Move.
Motion by Gage, second by Weiss. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
And ordinance 259, an ordinance amending Title 4, Second Revision, Brown County Ordinance as amended to rezone certain described property, filed by Bernie and Tanya Jark to go from Egg Preservation District to Mini Egg District.
Is there anyone here to speak to ordinance 259? Seeing none.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Dennert. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, moving on. Carly Winter, State's Attorney, to discuss uniform policy for her department. Good morning.
Good morning. Do you guys have copies of it?
There was one in the packet, yes.
Okay. Any questions off the bat?
No questions. I think you did a good job of providing justification and your reasoning behind it, and some of the things that you mentioned, I guess I didn't give any thought to. I questioned the need. It seemed like it was, more of an internal working group in the office, but like you explained, they have requirements to go into the courts and out and into different law offices and so on. So it made sense after I heard your logic. So
Yeah, and we made some over the years moves to be out in the community and provide education and that kind of thing. So I think it's important that we have our staff identified in those situations as well. I don't plan to make it a common thing. We're not going to outfit everybody for every day, certainly, but a couple pieces here and there. Also provide the additional benefit of keeping our staff warm. It's cold, so that way when they complain, we can say, put your sweatshirt on. So.
Sure. Anyone have any questions of Carly? Like I said, I felt she did a good job of explaining the need and justification, so I appreciate that.
Is there any kind of limit that you put on this for each person?
Yeah, I think I mentioned, a piece or two perhaps per employee, the duration, and then because they're purchased with county funds, there's a possibility of requesting those items back when they leave employment with the county.
So that means you gotta hire the same size person every day.
I don't know, we should put that out there.
That's profiling.
Yeah. But, yeah,
I like that.
Not a daily uniform, more of
Okay.
a piece here or there. A new hire, maybe after 6 months or something, kind of thing.
All right, any other questions for Carly? If not, I would entertain a motion to approve.
I'll do it.
Second.
Motion by Dennert, second by Weiss, to approve the uniform policy for the State's Attorney's Office. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thanks for coming over, Carly.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, moving on to the consent calendar.
Approval of the general meeting minutes from October 10th.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Claims.
Move. Second.
Motion by Jenner, okay, I didn't hear, and then second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
HR report.
Move.
Motion by Gage.
Second.
Second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Operating transfer for the highway department.
Move. Second.
Motion by Feldheim, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Auditor's report of accounts.
Move.
Motion by Denner.
Second.
Second by Gage. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Lease agreement.
Move.
Second. Motion by Weiss, second by Feldheim. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Is there any other business to come before the Brown County Commission this morning? The last item was the resolution in support of Free Speech Week. So the Free Speech Week proclamation, Lynn took off their website, pretty self-explanatory, just proclaiming the week of October 16th through the 22nd, 2023, to be Free Speech Week. It was in the packet that you all signed it. If there's no objection, I would entertain a motion to approve the chair to sign the proclamation.
I'll move it. Second.
Motion by Denner, second by Weiss. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Yes.
We all move the same thing.
All right. Any other business to come before the Brown County Commission?
Did an arrow or something.
We have a request for an executive session by the HR department for personnel. Any legal? Okay.
Good.
All right. Motion by Feldheim.
Second.
Second by Weiss. To go into executive session, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are in exec. All right. Camera's back on. We're out of exec with no action as a result. Is there anything else to come before the Brown County Commission this morning?
To adjourn.
Motion by Weiss.
Second.
Second by Denner to adjourn. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We are adjourned. Thank you.